Good evening, everyone, and a very, very warm welcome to the 30th edition of the Boxing Gossip podcast. It's amazing to think that we've sat down 30 times now as a podcast panel to record this, but I really look forward to it, enjoying it, enjoy filming it every week. So I hope you guys are still looking forward to watching it as we go out live. Got a fairly busy night tonight, lots to discuss. We're going to start by talking about last week's action, Ward versus Kovalev, George Groves. We're going to talk about some of the major news in the sport at the minute. We're going to talk Lucas Browne. We're going to talk Dave Allen versus Ortiz. Then we're going to look ahead to next week's action. Obviously, you've got Lomachenko versus Waters. You've got a Frank Warren show that appears to be falling apart, unfortunately. You've got an Eddie Hearn show at Wembley. So we're going to be talking through all of that. On the panel at the minute, Jet has joined us, Paul has joined us, Seri has joined us. So there's four of us on now. My understanding is that Irish Tom is joining tonight. So hopefully he'll be along in 5 or 10 minutes or so, and you can all get your dose of Irish Tom. But anyway, let me get started because there's a lot to discuss, as I mentioned. The first topic for the night can only be Ward versus Kovalev. Now, I'm actually going to start us off on this topic because I didn't do a video for this fight. I've been off YouTube and off Facebook and Twitter a bit in the last week or two because, to be honest, work is taking over my life at present, and I've got things pestering me from all angles. So I haven't been as active as I'd like to be, and normal service will be resumed in the medium-term future. But Ward versus Kovalev. Now, the fight's been very, very controversial. I will throw my hat in the ring by saying I do think Andre Ward just about did enough to nick it. I can see why the fight was controversial. Sergey Kovalev had a lot of success early on. Sergey Kovalev was the aggressive, come-forward fighter. Sergey Kovalev was the harder puncher. But I did feel Andre Ward was doing a lot of good work in there. I thought his jab to the body was very nice. I thought his inside game was very nice. I thought towards the end of the fight, he was starting to control the pace of the fight and be the general in there and win both in terms of the inside game, the body work, and also some of the stuff he was doing on the outside, which I thought was looking pretty good as well. So, yeah, tough fight, world-class fight. Two of the top guys in the sport as far as I'm concerned. And, yeah, for me, as I say, Andre Ward just doing enough to nick it. No robbery as far as I'm concerned. The right result on the BG scorecard. So that's my very, very quick thoughts on it. I'm going to start by bringing in Seri if I can. Seri, what was your take on the fight, mate?
Are you talking about Ward and Kovalev, yeah?
Yes, mate.
Well, top fight, one of my top fights of the year. As a boxing fan, I mean, you know, you see two top guys who are so closely matched in terms of, you know, height, reach, size, in terms, well, height anyway, not size, based on fight night. Kovalev looked huge in the ring, but the fight itself was a brilliant back and forth fight. I don't understand why people are saying it's a robbery. I can't see that, but very, very close, very, very tough to score. I can see cases for both men winning, but just top fight. I mean, initially when I scored it on the night, after 2 rounds, I was very, very worried for Andre Ward. I thought Kovalev was too big, too strong. But I kind of wrote him off too soon. But he fought his way back into it, made it a tough, gritty fight. He had to fight through, you know, a lot of adversity to come back. And obviously he pulled out the win based on the judges' scorecards. On the night, I had it 116-112 for Ward. Obviously, a lot of people said to me that was too wide, but that was just my opinion on the night. I've rewatched it literally every night since then, and I've rescored it every time, and I've had it 114-113 Ward every single time. But based on that score, I can see it being a Kovalev win as well. I can't really, you know, pardon me, I can't really have any issue with someone who says that I think Kovalev won because it was that close. I think both men came out as winners in terms of how good the fight was, and any casual fans hopefully will obviously know who these two guys are now, and hopefully look to watch a rematch. Hopefully.
Absolutely. Is that what you would pick as your next move, Seri? If you had a choice, would that be the very next fight straight away for you?
Yeah, most definitely. I think you have to capitalize on the momentum of that fight, especially with all the press it's gotten. As you know, as a lot of people in the press have said, it's good for boxing because of how good the fight was. But obviously, the people who are screaming robbery are the ones who are obviously had their own agenda. You know, someone like Dan Rafael, who clearly he had, I think, 7 rounds or 8 rounds to Kovalev on the scorecard in terms of how the difference was that wide for him. People like that who, you know, obviously saw it a certain way, whether you score it for Ward or score it for Kovalev, but the people that had it really, really wide. Obviously, look, boxing has opinions, but I mean, realistically, the only place these two can go is to each other again. Adonis Stevenson's not really relevant right now, even though he's got a belt. That's all he's got is a belt. I don't see him as, someone either man needs to fight straight away. I think rematch is probably the most sensible thing in terms of for legacy reasons. Whoever wants to fight more the second time around is going to win. If Kovalev goes out, say, to knock Andre Ward out and he can do it, then fair enough. There's going to be a trilogy, realistically, isn't there? And these two are arguably the two best light heavyweights in the world right now. So for me, that's the next most sensible move. And I think for monetary reasons, that'll be the best step as well for both men in their career. And it will say a lot about these two guys if they both decide to go for a rematch automatically rather than, dilly-dally and mess around for a bit. If they both get back in the ring together, then we can't really question these two as top fighters in terms of their balls as well, because a lot of fighters aren't doing this where they're immediately rematching people in close fights. Obviously, you got Carl Frampton and Leo Santa Cruz, but I'd say they're similar to these two where they want to have a legacy. They want to be known as people who fought the best in their prime and, and really decisively book themselves as people who had beaten someone and not just, scrape by. So definitely for Ward, I think he will take the rematch because he's not going to want to have just got by or, the score, even though for him winning is winning, I don't think he would have liked the fact that it was that close or that he got knocked down or that people are saying it was a robbery. So for his ego reasons as well, he'll definitely want to face Kovalev again and hopefully beat him cleanly again.
Interesting stuff. All right, cheers, sorry, mate. Paul, let me go over to you. So you've heard from me and Surrey, both of us edging it to Andre Ward there. Give us your take on the matchup.
I mean, when to be honest, on the night, I kind of I thought Kovalev won the fight. I thought he won the fight quite clearly. On the night, I had it a bit wider. I had it 116, 111. I've watched it again a couple of times, and I can see, I'm going to be honest. After I first watched it, I did feel it was a bit of a robbery, to be honest. I really did. Having watched it again, I streamed it onto my 50-inch, and it's a little bit easier to see things clearly on a bigger screen, obviously. For me, a robbery is when, one guy just totally fucking demolishes the other guy and it goes the other way. I do think there was a bit of home cooking there. I do think the fact that it was 3 American judges, an American referee in America, the Golden Boy, the gold medalist, the heir apparent to Floyd's sort of throne, if you like. I think there was a little bit of home cooking going on. Having said that, I'm not going to call it a robbery because some of those rounds were close, and you can kind of see how, depending on what you like, somebody could have scored them for Ward. Personally, myself, I don't see how Ward wins, but it was close. I don't see how Ward wins with the knockdown. I mean, for me, Kovalev won the first 4 rounds. I gave Ward the 5th, Kovalev the 6th again, and kind of he would have had to have won all the rest of the rounds for me to win that fight, and I just did. That's not what I saw. I don't think he was a bit dirty as well, Ward. Not as dirty as I've seen him in the past, but there was certainly an elbow. I think it was the 8th round. He threw an elbow. A lot of that inside work as well was, it is illegal to clinch and punch. I think a lot of people kind of don't really understand what inside fighting actually is. All this bending low and clinching and then rabbit punching and punching while you're clinching the guy. That's not inside fighting, and it's also not legal. And I think there's a problem with people kind of almost justifying dirty fighting. Well, it's part of the game. It's part of the game, and you've got to find a way to deal with it. Yeah, as an opponent, you do have to find a way to deal with it. But at the same time, it's still illegal. To headbutt is still illegal. To throw an elbow is still illegal. To clinch and hold the guy and punch him at the same time is still illegal. Bending below the waist is still illegal. All stuff that Ward does. I just don't like it. I don't like the fact that people kind of just accept it because it's Andre Ward. Like, I don't like it. I thought Kovalev was the better man. Very clear knockdown, and I just thought he won the fight. But like I say, I'm not going to go as far as to call it a robbery, because some of them rounds were kind of like, as I say, hard to call, I suppose. Some of them were pretty even as well. Some of the rounds where both guys pretty much got an even amount of work in. So Kovalev won the fight for me, but I won't go so far as to call it a robbery. I will say it was a great fight though. And also, as far as I'm aware, they have to, unless Kovalev's side, so Kathy Duva and Kovalev don't want, kind of allow them to not take the rematch straight away. That is a clause in the contract, as I understand it, according to Kathy Duva, that the only way there won't be an immediate rematch, and it is immediate, is if Kovalev's side agree to it not being an immediate rematch. And Kathy Duva said she won't be doing that. So we get to watch it again.
Yeah. Good points, Paul. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. And frankly, I don't think anyone can call this a robbery because there is general disagreement here amongst boxing fans. So you've got guys like myself and guys like Seri who, most would consider hardcore boxing fans who scored this to Ward. You've got guys like yourself who obviously knows the sport who scored it to Kovalev. And there seems to be a lot of genuine disagreement out there on either side of the fence. So I think calling it a robbery, whoever out there is calling it a robbery, is kind of wider the mark. I think this is a fight which we have to recognise has just caused genuine confusion and
I mean, I would like to say as well, it wasn't just I don't know if Dan Raphael had it 115, 112, but like quite a lot of people had it for Kovalev. I mean, I've got a list here. Somebody tweeted a list. Andrew Harrison of Boxing Monthly, Harold Lederman, Bernardo Osuna, Chris Mannix, Al Bernstein, Bad Left Hook. I mean, Mr. Boxing Today had it for Kovalev as well, a guy whose opinion I definitely sort of respect and stuff. Quite a lot of people did have it for Kovalev. But as you say, no, to call it a robbery is maybe a bit too far. It's going a bit too far because, for me, a robbery is when, I mean, I'll tell you what, I guess we'll probably talk about it. The one of the fights beforehand, I think, was a bit of a robbery. The Hooker Darlis Perez fight, I thought Perez clearly won. But yeah, as you say, I think it needs to be a lot wider for it to be actually called a robbery in my eyes. So no, I won't go that far either.
Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. No, I hear what you're saying. Let me bring in Jet. Jet, let's hear your take on the scoring and who won.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it the day after. I actually fell asleep just before the broadcast started because I know Gutknecht versus Chilemba was actually one of the first fights on the card that Sky were broadcasting, but I didn't get around to catching it, so I watched it the day after. I didn't really watch it in proper detail, but from what I could gather and what I kind of picked up from each round, I didn't watch each round in its entirety, so I'll have to go back and watch it again. I had it as a draw. So, but I can understand, Kovalev winning. Some people obviously have him a few rounds up. I know Harold Lederman, I actually listened to his commentary after about 3 or 4 rounds, and he had Kovalev winning every single round. I think up until round 5 or 6, he had him winning everything, and he obviously gave it to Kovalev wide, which was absolute garbage. That was a joke. I mean,
yeah, I'm not sure you could have it a draw. How could you score a draw?
You go 7-5 plus the knockdown. Anyway, but I had the rounds level.
You have it 6-6 with Kovalev nicking it because of the knockdown.
All you need is one draw round.
Yeah, I think I gave round 3. It might have been round 3. I think I gave as a draw. I can't remember, but
one of the rounds.
I didn't score it.
One of the rounds was really close. I think it might have been 5.
I can't remember because I know some people gave Kovalev round 3, then some people gave Ward round 3, but I can't remember what round it was. I'll be honest. As I said, I wasn't scoring it in its entirety, but I had it as a draw. But I can understand either man winning here or there. Ward, especially in the later rounds, he kind of took over. He dictated the pace. I see Kovalev getting tired. So, and what was a bit surprising is Kovalev did get tired. He's never really faded late in his fights. I know he obviously takes out people quite early, but he's never really faded late in fights. So maybe it was a weight thing. He didn't make weight properly or something like that. I'm not sure. That may have affected his performances slightly. I'm not sure, but the size difference was massive in there. Let's put it that way. But very, very, very close fight. I mean, as I said, Lederman gave it very wide. I think Dan Rafael had it 115, 112. I'm not sure there was a list, but some people gave it 117, 111, which I thought was way too wide, and it doesn't give either man credit. In regards to a rematch, it should be a rematch, but obviously it's contractually obliged, so it will happen. But there's other players in sort of the in the division. Obviously, one guy on the undercard just won, Gutknecht. But there's other guys. Adonis Stevenson's obviously talking a lot. Does anyone really want to see him fight? Probably not. But he's in and around there. He holds a belt. Your mate Nathan Cleverley's around there as well. He's been talking today. I was reading his article on Sky Sports saying he's looking for the Jürgen Bremer rematch next, and then maybe the Kovalev Ward winner if they do a rematch after. So there's options there.
Be careful. Ward better be very careful.
He's going to get a brutal stoppage, I think. Brutal stoppage.
The streak that my boy Cleverley is on, Ward better be very careful. That's what I'm saying.
But yeah, so, I mean, there's players in the division, but a rematch is the most logical step. And, it's a very close fight, but I'd probably see Ward just nicking it in the rematch, I reckon.
Yeah, I think in a rematch, I'd have to say I think Ward's chance of winning is increased. And the reason I'd say that is because Ward is one of the smartest boxers you'll see. And now Ward has the benefit of having shared the ring for 12 rounds with Kovalev. Initially he struggled with it. Kovalev won a lot of the early rounds. Kovalev caused a lot of problems early on. And by the end of the fight, Ward was picking up rounds convincingly on the whole. And I felt he was definitely the general in there and dictating the action. So I don't know if it's easy to say that Ward figured Kovalev out. That may be doing Kovalev a disservice. But what I'm getting at is with that 12-round experience under the belt, I think Ward is the guy who's going to adapt and bring different action to the ring. Whereas I think we saw the best of Sergei Kovalev in there against Andre Ward. So that's my take on it. Let's bring in Tom. After we do this, I'm keen to hear some discussion as to how Andre Ward sits in the sport. Is he an all-time great? Is he a pound-for-pound number one? Because I've got quite strong opinions on that. But let's bring in Tom first so we get a complete roundup from the panel. Tom, who did you have winning the fight, mate?
When I watched it live the first time, I had it kind of wide. It's 3 rounds for Andre Ward. But I had money on it, and I was listening to Paulie Maggi, Twitter in my ear. So there's going to be a bit of bias in there. But I rewatched it the next day, and he sat down and tried to score it. I scored it like 5-3 for Ward, and then what was it? 5. Oh fuck! What did I do? 5-3, and then 4 swing rounds, I think.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So it actually works out that it would have went like 115, 112 in either direction. So to me, it's just one of those super tight fights. Personally, I think Andre Ward probably won it. Probably the best score is 114, 113. but I couldn't argue with it going the other way. But I just thought it was a great fight. It's the first fight I got up in the middle of the night to watch since Pacquiao Mayweather, and it was a lot better fucking fight than that. Yeah, it was a really, really good high level fight. I think, I had money on Ward to win it, but I think most of the things I said about the matchup in beforehand were probably wrong, to be honest with you. I think I kind of got lucky. It's the first fight I've been betting on in ages where I got lucky. I think, last week you said that Kovalev is a bigger man, and I disagree with you. And in the ring, he definitely looked like the bigger man. Yeah. Ward looked, whether he was wearing heels or whatever in his shoes or whatever, he definitely looked a smaller man, a smaller frame. Andrew Ward cannot go anyway above light heavyweight. This is maximum weight for him, as far as I'm concerned. I thought Kovalev performed not much better. I thought he performed better than I expected. I thought he boxed really well. My overriding impression about this is Kovalev left that fight in the ring. It's hard to, it's very hard on Andre Ward to say that he didn't win the fight, but I still feel more like Kovalev lost it. If he had more urgency in one round, if he had just displayed urgency in one round for the last 30, 40 seconds of one of them rounds in the last 6, he would have won that fight, And we got to give credit to Ward, because I think Ward did the reason why maybe was that Kovalev was the body work. He really got, Ward really hit him to the body a lot. And they weren't they were good body shots. And people were saying, why, Kovalev, why didn't he just go with it? The thing is, he's getting smashed in the body. And also, if you look at his face afterwards, his nose is busted up. So Ward did do some damage, but just all around, I could talk about this fight for ages, but it's just a great fight. Paul, look at all of the people who predicted it on the panel for Ward gave it to Ward, and Paul gave it to Kovalev. He went for Kovalev. So it's one of those fights where it's what I think people are with their heart a bit, including myself. But, Paul said that Mr. Boxing today scored it for Kovalev, and he's someone he respects. Basically what he's saying there, lads, is he doesn't respect any of us. So fuck you, Paul.
I think, that's a nice way of looking at it, Tom. Let me, I'll move it on, because we got a lot to get through. I want to talk about Ward's status in the sport. I've got strong opinions on this. The way I look at Andre Ward is you have a supreme amateur. You have an Olympic gold medalist. You've got a guy who's turned pro in the pro ranks, and he's turned pro, and he's done very, very well at 168 pounds. He's won the Super 6, which is a huge, huge historic event in boxing. He's proved himself to be the dominant fighter at super middleweight at a time when you've got guys like Carl Frost, Mikhail Kessler, Arthur Abraham in the division. He's gone completely undefeated. He's fought Chad Dawson in a fight that people will always debate as to how worthwhile that form is. He's then had a substantial layoff, and he's come back after a substantial layoff, and he has fought a guy in the weight division above who most would consider the #1 light heavyweight in the world, and who most would consider a pound-for-pound top 5 fighter. And for me, he's just about done enough after a long layoff, after inadequate preparation, after competing not in his natural weight class. For me personally, I think Andre Ward has to go down as a truly, truly great fighter. I think he is the definite pound-for-pound #1 in the sport right now. I have him pound-for-pound #1 by a clear margin. I have him borderline unbeatable at 168 pounds. Right now, I wouldn't pick anyone to beat him at 175, apart from maybe Nathan Cleverly. And yeah, I genuinely think that Ward has to go down as an all-time great fighter. I'm not saying that his resume or his attributes necessarily mean that he needs to be talked about like Muhammad Ali or Sugar Ray Robinson. I'm not phrasing it that way. But for me, this is a guy who is a a top-class fighter in terms of this generation. So I'll throw that out there to the wider audience. What do you guys make, guys on the panel, about comments like that?
I think it's bullshit.
Strong.
No, no, I've been pejorative. No, I disagree with you, to be honest with you. Like, that wasn't the performance from Andre Ward that I was expecting, to be honest with you. I think he's not near the fighter he was in. I think even the fighter that was in 2011. I think Andre Ward is a great fighter. What's great about Andre Ward is not so much. I know he's got great boxing ability, but it's his brain, you know, and it's his real hard. He's a real hard bastard, and his willingness to do whatever it takes and in the ring to win and to put up with it. But like, you know, when I think about people who were considered top pound for pound number one fighters throughout the years, you know, Andre Ward doesn't, for my opinion, doesn't live in that same class as those guys. I don't. You know, he scraped a decision against Kovalev, you know, and who was his other wins? Mikhail Kessler and Karl Froch. You know, they're two good fighters, and Kovalev is definitely the best fighter he has fought. But they're not, you know, I just don't think you could compare him to Manny. I don't think you compare him to Floyd. You can't compare him to, I don't think you could compare him. I think Oscar De La Hoya is a better fighter. You know, I think, you know, Pernell Whitaker, you can't compare him to him. You can't compare him to Roy Jones. You can't compare him to Bernard Hopkins. Maybe Bernard Hopkins. You know, not Mike Tyson. You know, I think these guys, these guys are just a higher class of fighter. I don't think I put him number one. I thought I would have put him number one before this fight if he won the fight, to be honest.
Where
but watching him,
Tom?
Sorry?
Where did you have Kovalev?
Again?
Where did you have Kovalev before this?
In the pound for pound, I had him probably as. I don't really have my own pound for pound. Pound for pound in my own sorted out, to be honest with you. Like, but when I'm just looking at the Ring Pound for Pound magazine here right now, this is the top 10. We've got Roman Gonzalez, Ward, Kovalev, Golovkin, Crawford, Rigondeaux, Lomachenko, Canelo, Yamanaka, and Frampton. Right. Like, to be honest with you, I put Terence Crawford and Rigondeaux ahead of Andre Ward. That's how I feel. I think they're better fighters than Andre Ward.
I've got to say, I agree with Irish Tom for once. I don't see Andre Ward as an all-time great at all. Don't like his style of fighting. I don't think. I think some of his wins are questionable over good fighters, but not fantastic fighters. Kovalev, Froch, his best wins. Kessler, he fought one of the dirtiest fights I've ever seen. He some of the blatant headbutting and stuff in that fight was just like, we're talking about boxing. Yeah, if we were talking about street fighting, or we were talking about MMA, or some kind of discipline where the rules allow for that sort of thing, then yeah, okay, maybe you could call him a top pound for pound, but we're not. We're talking about boxing, and boxing has rules. And I don't think going forward, people will look back at somebody like Andre Ward and talk about him in the same breath as someone like, you know, Sugar Ray Leonard, Sugar Ray Robinson, and Muhammad Ali.
Matt Hagler, he's nowhere near. To me, he's nowhere near. But
let me just butt in. There's a comment in the chat here. You can't disregard Ward's greatness due to not liking his style. I completely agree with that comment. You know, I don't like Ward's style, but it's one of the most effective styles out there. He's beating people, and he's you know, he must have. I mean, maybe Manny Pacquiao, but apart from Manny Pacquiao, he must have one of the greatest resumes in the sport at present.
You can't because you don't like his style, but you can disregard it based on his cheating and that cheating not getting picked up. I mean, like,
but Paul, like, you got, in fairness to Andre Ward, he wasn't dirty in that fight with Kovalev.
He wasn't as dirty as he has been, but he did headbutt him, he did elbow him, he was bending below the waist, and he was hitting him in the clinch, and that stuff is still illegal. I mean,
what do you mean? What do you mean hitting in the clinch? What do you mean by that now? Describe that, because
if you've got one arm loose, you're allowed to hit.
Exactly. You've got one arm loose. Just because you're both beside each other or near to each other doesn't mean you're not allowed to hit.
And to be fair,
like,
sorry, Tom, carry on.
No, you speak away, Cherry.
I'm not like getting to, this is a debate, I guess. I suppose. I mean, obviously, yeah, the one arm being free and they were hitting. But to be fair, let's be honest. Until around round 7 or 8, Kovalev had him on lockdown when it came to the clinch. He had him in a headlock, and he was holding him. Kovalev actually dominated the clinches, if anything, in terms of when Ward was trying to get on the inside. Kovalev held him, and he pretty much shut him down straight away until about round 8. Once the body shots started taking effect on Kovalev and he's slowing down, that's when Andre Ward started to let loose the uppercuts and ripping the body. But apart from that, I think Kovalev pretty much shut that down pretty much straight away.
Yeah, and the other thing I was surprised with, just getting back to the fight, was like Kovalev, he was walking him back. When he got into these clinches, he would just walk Andre Ward straight back to the ropes. Remember when Carl Froch was fighting Andre Ward, and we're all thinking Froch is going to give it to him on the inside. He just walked Froch right back to the ropes. And that showed me that Andre Ward, one element of why he was so dominant as super middleweight was that he had a physical advantage in strength over all these guys on the inside. But at heavyweight, light heavyweight, he doesn't have it. So he had to really rely on his outside and some of his inside skills. But it took away a huge amount of his arsenal, not being able to dominate inside. And when we're talking about pound for pound, we talk about a lot of these guys who are able to go up divisions, and it's their pure boxing skill, and whatever speed and power they're able to do it. But Andre Ward, I don't think he has that. And I think if you ask me, if you put him in with Kovalev again, I think it's a close fight again. I think Ward is probably favourite because I don't think he'll get knocked down again. So then he'll probably win on points. But it's a close fight. But if you put him in, say, with Adonis Stevenson, I think that's a tough fight for him too. I don't think he's going to dominate Adonis Stevenson. I'm not a fan of Adonis Stevenson, but Adonis Stevenson will give him different challenges. These guys are big guys. We can't compare what he did to Kovalev, say, versus what Roy Jones Jr. did to James Toney. It's just leagues, different league of a type of a fighter. If I think about people like Barrera or Morales, I have them ahead of him nearly. You know what I mean? Look at who they fought and who they bet.
You know what it is? I think it's one of those things where no matter how great a fighter is in a certain weight class, there comes a point where they hit a weight that their skill will only carry them so far. It doesn't mean they're not able to compete at the level or be competitive at that level. Obviously, Andre Ward was able to compete, but we did see that size and physical power and these sort of factors were definitely a part of Kovalev's advantages over him. But obviously, that's not to discredit Kovalev. His boxing was A-class in that fight, and he showed that he is truly a top-class boxer. He's not just people have this impression of him that he's just a power puncher, but obviously we know he's not, but we saw that there's another level to him. He can box with these slick, elite boxers like Andre Ward. But I think, it's one of those things where, like Tom just said, Adonis Stevenson, even though I don't personally like Adonis Stevenson that much, or I don't really, think he's top level at this point. I mean, he's a guy who's always going to be in with a chance with his punching power, and against someone like Andre Ward, if he's getting, I'm not saying he was particularly, overly hurt with that shot, but it definitely buzzed him, and there's a few points where he got hit where his legs went, and he did that funny dance with the jab in the first round, and that was just a jab. So it does show that, size is a big part of this, and Kovalev was just a beast in terms of the size. When they were side by side, towards the camera, the body dimensions is huge. So, I think another thing is, we're saying is that you're not going to consider him on the same level as a Ray Leonard, etc., etc. I think a big part of the legacies of some of the greatest fighters of all time that we look back at, especially when people talk about Muhammad Ali, and look, he's passed away now, but it's one of those things where Ali was always, I felt he was, how do I put this without sounding controversial? I felt like, looking back on him now, he was overrated based on what time he was in. And what I mean by that is people merged his accomplishments inside the ring with his reputation and the timing of what was going on outside the ring to say he's the greatest of all time, based on what was going on with the movement outside the ring and the way that people felt about him as a person, and that's why they say he's the greatest ever. And I still think, of course, he's one of the greatest of all time, but I wouldn't say based on skill he's one of the best ever. But I feel the fact that he came through a lot of adversity, and in this fight, as as a starting point, Andre Ward had to come through a lot of adversity to get that victory. So I think that's definitely something that will go towards building his legacy as an all-time great. I don't think he's there yet, but I think if he carries on winning, there's not really much argument from my side anyway.
Let me ask you.
Yeah, I think Kovalev smashes fuck out of him in the rematch. I think Kovalev will. I really do. I think Kovalev was hitting him. Seemed to be hitting him when he wanted to, and I really think Kovalev kind of like thought he had the fight won, and kind of like I think in a rematch it was quite clear how hard done by he felt, and I think with some reason I think in a rematch he will make absolutely certain, and I would pick him to knock Andre Ward out in the rematch, to be honest.
Well, here, Paul, one thing, Paul, like that you were saying about Andre Ward, like got a hometown decision. Like, listen to HBO. Listen to how biased they were. The home broadcaster. They definitely wanted the KO merchant to win. You know, I don't think it was I think that's harsh on Andre Ward saying that it was hometown decision.
No, I don't because it was only Harold Lederman that was saying Kovalev was. I mean, like
it was Lampley as well.
Max Kellerman was giving Ward plenty of sort of like credit and stuff.
He wasn't giving him plenty of credit. He was saying things like, "I think some of those rounds might have been closer than Harold is saying." It was hardly a ringing endorsement for Ward.
He's doing some really great things in there. He's doing some really amazing things in there. I mean, like, I know what you're saying. He weren't going over the top, but what I mean by hometown cooking, I mean it is kind of like for three judges to sit side by side and watch that fight and not, taking into consideration a knockdown, taking into consideration, what all three of them like that style, that holding. I mean, like,
but Paul,
I don't know, three American judges and an American referee in America with the, I didn't like it, man. I don't see how three people can sit side by side and all see it the same way.
Well, surely they should, but that's what should happen. Boxing judges should get the same score. I just think, look, it's so close a fight. I just think. To be honest with you, I feel like Kovalev lost the fight. I feel like, that as in a sense, like he left it in there.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I agree to a certain extent, and that's kind of like what I was saying about in the rematch. I think he took his foot off the gas to some extent, and I think that was because he thought he'd done enough.
I know, but Paul, can you get it?
You can't do that. You can't do that at this level.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, it's a good point, and that's why I'm saying maybe he probably won't do that in the rematch, because there will be a rematch.
Yeah,
but Paul, the other thing is, like, will he get a knockdown in the rematch?
No,
because Andre Ward, once he adjusted, he really didn't get caught too much.
Got caught with maybe two or three punches after that right hand. So that's it.
I think that's why Ward was a huge advantage in the rematch, because he's already made the adjustments.
He's like Mayweather. Once you make the adjustments, it's going to be easier the second time round. But I'm not saying that Andre Ward is that level. No. I'm just saying that in terms of the stylistic matchup, once he's made that adjustment now, he knows what he needs to not do in the rematch. Obviously, Kovalev will have his own adjustments as well, but I don't think they're going to change the fight particularly in his favour, if that makes sense.
I disagree. I think the thing is...
Paul's bitter, man. Paul is so hurt. You can hear it in his voice. He's going on and on.
Not at all. I'm English. I didn't really give a shit either way, to be fair.
Lads, we need to put him on suicide watch.
Let me ask, and we'll keep this brief because I do need to move this on, guys, because else we'll run out of time to discuss next week. But let me do a quick rip around the panel. I just put out in the chat Pete Calzaghe versus Pete Ward, who wins, and I was amazed by the responses. Pretty much 80 to 90% of the people who responded saying Pete Calzaghe wins that fight. Jet, who wins?
Joe.
Paul, who wins?
I'd pick Calzaghe, to be honest.
Sorry?
Oh, man. Andre Ward.
Tom?
I think I'd go Calzaghe.
Interesting. I can't pick. Joe Calzaghe is my favourite fighter of all time. He's the main reason I got into boxing. I don't know. I don't know. I view Andre Ward as a very similar fighter to Bernard Hopkins, but I actually view Andre Ward as a bit above Bernard Hopkins. And, you know, I wonder if Ward would be technically refined enough to get the win over a guy like Calzaghe. You know, if you put a gun to my head, I'd probably be picking Ward, actually. But there we go. Let's move it on because there was another fight this weekend as well. George Groves versus Gutknecht. Now, first and foremost, hope everything is well with Team Gutknecht. I understand that he was rushed to hospital afterwards and was potentially in quite a bad way. So do hope that there's no lasting damage there. Jet, let's go over to you, mate. Your take on that matchup. Did you get to see it?
Yeah. It was on the Friday night, wasn't it?
That's right.
Channel 5. Yeah, I mean, not a bad fight, actually. You know, a bit of action. George Groves won pretty handily, to be honest. I think some of the scorecards were like 119, 110, 119, 109. Kind of reflected the fight, you know. Gutknecht was, you know, kind of busy in the fight. He came to try and just, you know, come forward, try and bulldoze George Groves and probably tire him out late. George Groves was good enough to just try and, you know, pop the jab out, a few combinations here and there. And he won the fight, you know, pretty easily. I said that he would win pretty easily. My thoughts are with Team Gutknecht and his family. So hope he gets better soon. But yeah, I mean, do you know what? I was actually thinking about this earlier on, just before we came on, about an hour before. I was watching the first George Groves Carl Froch fight, and that George Groves against any of the champions now would be a tremendous fight. You know, obviously Badou Jack and James DeGale are fighting in January. I'd pick him to beat Jack pretty badly if that George Groves turned up. But you know, obviously it's a bit sad from a British perspective, I guess, to see his career kind of fall down to the height it has done now. So yeah, I mean, well done to him. He gets a victory. He's obviously looking to face Fedor Chudinov for the WBA super title, I think, next. WBA regular is actually Tyrone Zoiga after he got a KO win over De Carolis in the rematch. So, you know, there's options there for him. Obviously, probably going down the WBA route and get a unification with whoever wins the Jack DeGale fight. Conrad Cummings actually was on the undercard and he lost. There's a few guys on the undercard. Andrew Selby, they won the undercard as well. So it wasn't the worst night of action. It was okay, you know, okay for a Friday night, I guess. So yeah, as I said, Selby won quite easily and Cummings actually got a split decision loss, which was a bit controversial as well.
Yeah, I thought Groves for me is an interesting fighter. Groves is one of those fighters. When he's on top, he's a great fighter to watch. You know, he's explosive. His jab, I think he's got the best jab in British boxing. I think he's got a better jab than any of the heavyweights. I think he's got a better jab than Kell Brook. I think his jab is the best jab out there. He puts punches together so well. He is a great boxer to watch when he's on top. But the thing about George Groves is he's so vulnerable. He's vulnerable in terms of stamina. He's vulnerable in terms of defense. And, you know, you've always got this perception watching George Groves that he can be ground down and that he can be worn out and hurt. And Gutknecht, you know, he was putting a lot of pressure on and he didn't have the class of Groves. But there were periods in this fight I thought Groves could fade and I thought Groves could, you know, potentially get himself into trouble in there. So, yeah, I think he's an exciting guy to watch, Groves. And, yeah, I think it's that combination of class offense with vulnerability that makes him very, very interesting. But I did think he looked good against Gutknecht. I personally think his last two fights, Martin Murray and Gutknecht, have been very good performances. So I give Shane McGuigan some credit for that, actually. Paul, what was your take on the fight, mate?
Don't mind if I add something.
Go on.
Sorry to cut you off, Paul, before. But you say the last two performances have been good. I'm a George Groves fan, to be honest. But, you know, Martin Murray, we spoke about it last week or the week before when he fought Lowell. He fights at a level that, you know, that everyone else fights at. And even against George Groves, he was fighting at a subpar level. George Groves done a quite easy number on him in the end. this fight against Gutknecht, obviously, you have to look at the opposition. Martin Murray is a Neelyman. He's there, but he's not there at the same time. He's just, obviously he's clutching at the world title straw, which isn't there. Gutknecht, obviously, he's come off a defeat in his last fight to Jürgen Bremer, and he's obviously come short in a few world title shots as well. So you got to look at the opposition as well. I mean, he did look good, but against a sort of a better operator. I know he actually called out Ramirez a few weeks ago, and that for me is suicide at the moment. So you have to look at it in regards to the opponent. Fedor Chudinov would be a very good opponent. I think George Groves will win that fight, but that's not a gimme fight. That's a serious fight. So it's the level of opposition certainly we got to look at with George Groves. And as you said, vulnerability is a big problem with him, and people will look to pick up on that.
Fair enough. Absolutely. Paul, let me bring you in, mate. What was your take on it?
Yeah, I thought Groves looked pretty good. I kind of agree with Jet. The opponent, I mean, it wasn't. He did put a bit of pressure on him, but he didn't look great to me. But I mean, the thing with Groves is I always think of Groves as kind of like approaching the autumn of his career, but he's only 28. I think there's definitely I definitely want to see where he goes from here. I also think he'd beat Chudinov. I thought it was a decent performance from him. Did anybody see the undercard fights? Did anybody see the Andrew Selby fight? I thought Andrew Selby. I know the guy Jake Borneo. He wasn't any world beater by any stretch of the imagination, but he was a step up for Selby, and I thought Selby looked absolutely brilliant. I thought Selby looked really, really good. I don't know if anybody else saw him.
That fight as well. Really, really good. He's a top prospect. I know they were talking about Charlie Edwards versus Andrew Selby for the British, but then Edwards went for the IBF champ. I can't remember his name, John Casemiro. So I think Selby would actually beat Casemiro. I'll be honest. I'll pick Selby in that fight if that ever got made.
Yeah, I think he'd beat him as well. I mean that kid Borneo, I can't remember exactly what it was, Borneo or Borneo. He was a tough kid, and Selby just beat the shit out of him, mate. And like the kid could barely land a glove on him as well. I mean, for me, it was a really, really well-rounded performance. I like to see kind of like different aspects of a fighter's game, and I thought, he was so good defensively, so great jab, great body work, sits down on his punches more than he did in some of his earlier fights. I was really impressed with him. I just wanted to kind of get that in.
Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. No, that's fair enough. Let's move it on to Sarah. Your take on the Groves matchup, please, mate.
I'm not going to lie, Tom. I wasn't actually home. I missed the fight. I just managed to catch it on Twitter while I was out.
No worries, mate. We'll come to you first on the next one. No worries at all. Tom, did you see it, mate?
I did, yeah. Well, what I think is, I couldn't believe that they didn't stop that fight against George Groves, to be honest with you. I think everybody who's involved there let him down. I think the referee, when he sees the beating he's getting and the eye that's on him, and one thing about Gutknecht, he was super fit, and when he was coming forward, he was putting pressure on Groves. But once the eye got happened, and then you have a come forward fighter who's obviously can't see from one eye and is being pushed backwards and given nothing back, should have been stopped. Like, it was nearly a repeat for me of what do you call him? The Chris Eubank one. What's your man's name again? The Nick Blackwell fight. And when I was watching the Nick Blackwell fight, I was thinking, why is this not being stopped? Like, why? Like, the corner, the doctor, got to step in these, especially when these guys are weights like middleweight and super middleweight, these guys hit hard and they can throw lots of punches and they got good stamina. Like, you know, they're not big enough to knock each other out a lot of the time. I just think that was very bad combination from everybody. Poor fella is probably, it's definitely his career is over and he could be seriously injured. So I think it puts me off boxing, to be honest with you. You know, that's the third thing this year in the British boxing, you know, and I think two of them could have been prevented. The fight itself, George Grove is an accident waiting to happen, if you ask me. Like, even when Gutknecht could get him on the ropes in the first 6 rounds, it was like, you know, he was shitting himself. I watched a bit of Froch Groves today, the original one, the first one, and it was like, Groves looks completely shot compared to that fighter. He's just a totally different fighter.
He looks a totally
different
fighter. Yeah, you just took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah. Do you know, I'll tell you when he looked like him, Jet. Do you know, paradoxically, in about the 11th or the 12th round, when your man wasn't able to throw and he had a fucking bleed in the brain and nothing was coming back, and George Groves, and suddenly he looked like he'd full of flair and confidence. I think he's terrified of getting hit.
Yeah.
You know?
Terrified. I think that's why I think of him as older than he is, you know. Because his
appearance as well,
he's gone in the head.
It's a weird situation with Groves, because I remember vividly when Groves Sprots 1 was announced, and I remember thinking Groves this is far too early for Groves. Groves is still a prospect. He hasn't had the learning fights for a guy like Carl Frots. I remember thinking that clear as day, that he's too young. He's just a prospect. He's had those 2 fights against Carl Frots, and now he's kind of become a veteran, hasn't he? Overnight, you know, and it's only now that we're seeing him in the sort of mid-tier fights, if you like, the Gutknechts, the Murrays, the Brophies, you know, those kind of mid-tier fights. I know he had the De Gale fight early on.
He had Glenn Johnson.
Paul Smith,
Glenn Johnson.
Glenn Johnson.
I think.
You know,
I think he had.
Yeah, no, you guys are right. To be fair, you guys are right. But it's a weird situation to sum up his career. I think he very much. I know he's always had a good jab. I think McGuigan has really got him fighting behind the jab. But it kind of alludes back. It kind of links back to the point I made right at the start of the topic, which is that for me, Groves is one of those fighters who's good when he's on top, but not good when the going gets tough. You know, I'm not saying he's a Malik Scott because he's not that bad, but you know. Malik Scott can be in a fight and he can win every round. You think Malik Scott is a genuine class heavyweight. But then when you see him get in a tough fight, it all falls apart.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a bit harsh on him. I just think his confidence is gone. And, you know, the other thing is, like, when people, like, are getting, like, knocked out in fights, you know, it can have, like, effect on your brain too, you know, and your body. So, like, he actually might be, like, physically old for his age as well. But, you know, he's got such a weird looking body on him too. He's like a shaved pig. Did you ever see, like, you know, when you have, like, say somebody like Badu Jack and you see them in the ring and their muscle looks hard. You know what I mean? It looks like wrought iron. And then you got George Groves. And, like, even though there's no fat in him, when he punches, he just, all his, like, fucking pig flesh just ripples in the wind. I don't know. It's a disgusting sight.
Irish Tom, did you see the Cummings fight on the undercard, since he's Irish and whatnot? I'm sure.
No, I didn't. I only got the Andrew Selby and I got that one. I didn't get the Cummings one. I don't think. Yeah, I haven't actually seen Cummings, but I don't think he's that up to that much.
He actually lost,
from what I've heard.
Yeah, he lost, but apparently it was a controversial decision. So I don't know. I just thought you might have seen it.
Yeah, no.
Did anyone see the Hooker Darlis Perez fight?
Yeah, that was a robbery, mate. That Hooker got away with murder. Hooker's an accident waiting to happen, definitely, mate.
Yeah, I'm glad it's not just me then. I thought
he lost badly in that fight. I think one of the scorecards was, 9-3 Hooker or something like that? That's a joke, man. Can't believe it.
Yeah, and he was another Rock Nation fighter as well, weren't he? So,
yeah, what?
It was the same...
Yeah, go on.
It was the same judge that did McDonnell against Solis.
Was it? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. The worst thing is, Darlis, you know, if Hooker was any decent, he would be beating Darlis Perez. Darlis Perez is bang average. He is, bang at it. But then again, I guess he got a gift decision for me in the Anthony Crawler fight, in the first fight. So maybe it's come full circle. I don't know, but it is what it is. And if he's won the fight, he's won the fight. I guess I can't say much more than that.
But here, lads, just to the fellas who are watching it, you should hit the thumbs up button there, because it might be able to get. If we get enough likes, maybe we'll get enough money for Gossip to buy himself a razor, because he's looking a bit dishevelled here this evening.
I like the beard, man. Keep it. Don't
We'll send him a Mac 3.
There you go.
That's 4 of us on the panel now with beards.
This is pure laziness. Pure laziness.
We need to donate some to Paul.
I know. Here, Paul, we'll get some hair in that head of yours.
Did you know Paul can't grow hair anywhere on his body? He was telling me this the other day offline. I hope you don't mind me saying it, but Paul is completely bald.
You're supposed to keep that between me and you, Tom. What the fuck?
Head to toe.
Well,
Anyway,
what type of private conversations are these you guys are having?
Wait,
Tell each other about your pubes.
The moral of this story is never tell Gossip anything in confidentiality at all, whatsoever. He'll do you over.
There you go.
Ladies, if you're listening, this is not the man for you.
Yeah, my 6% female viewers. If you're watching, let's move it on. We'll go to Seri, because didn't bring him in on the George Groves topic. Seri, let's start with Ortiz versus David Allen, mate. Give us your initial reaction to this news.
I'm actually really shocked it's happening, because I would never in a million years have imagined that fight. But I think, listen, after the last fight, obviously a lot of casual people on Twitter are saying that Ortiz is average, and that I've just literally been flicking through Twitter now and I was reading some posts. A lot of people saying, Ortiz isn't that good. Allen can beat him on work rate, this and that. I'm like, are you serious? Are you taking the piss? Obviously, look, Allen, I'm not discrediting him. Look, full credit to him for taking the fight. But it's a different style of fight. Malik Scott was very negative in terms of the way he fought. He did literally just ran around the ring. He didn't hardly throw any punches. Survival mode from the beginning. I'm not saying it could be any different with Dave Allen, but Dave Allen doesn't have the same style as Malik Scott. He might be trying to survive, but he hasn't got a fleet-footed movement. He can't run around the ring. He'd have to just be there to get hit. And I think Ortiz stops him within 4 rounds, if I'm honest with you. Wow.
Do you not think that, obviously Ortiz has just went the distance with Malik Scott, so it is possible to go the distance against Ortiz, and Allen's looked very durable. Do you not think it could work out?
No, of course. I can see that side to it. When I think of what he's done to people like Tony Thompson and Bryant Jennings, I don't see someone like Dave Allen who, the way he fought against White, not that was necessarily a bad fight. It was a fun little fight to watch, but I can't see him lasting against someone like Ortiz. I still rate Ortiz highly. I wouldn't say maybe as highly as I did before the last fight, but I think that was just an unfortunate matchup of styles, and just the way it ended up being was just underwhelming. But I don't think Dave Allen can win this fight. I don't think it's a winnable fight. He's just there to get a bit of a payday, I guess, depending on how much Hearn is paying him, and just to get him with a bigger name. Because obviously, I'd say Ortiz is obviously a bigger name than than White. So obviously, for Dave Allen to say he's in with those two in 1 year, or the gap of 4 or 5 months, that's an accomplishment for him in itself, isn't it? Really, but I'm sure he'll be in there, but I don't think he's there to win it. I can't imagine him trying to win the fight. I don't know how he's winning.
Fair enough. I've got to say, as a Dave Allen fan and as a Dave Allen friend, I'm disappointed to see this fight being made. I think it's, to be honest, it's Dave fully accepting his position as a journeyman in the sport. And Luis Ortiz is not the kind of fight you want to take at short notice, regardless of how bad he looked against Malik Scott. And he did look bad for my money. Jet, how do you see the fight going, mate?
Yeah, I mean, give me a moment.
Do you want me to go to one of the other guys and come back to you?
Yeah, if you can, please.
Yeah, no worries. Tom, Ortiz versus David Allen. I know you've got strong thoughts on this one, mate.
Yeah, I just think it's a terrible fight, to be honest, and I think that Dave's on for a hiding. Whoever saw like a rhino dancing, he's not going to be able to do what Malik Scott did, that's for sure. I just think he's on for a pacing. And, these guys who have good chins sometimes, they're the guys who end up with really bad brain damage because they just keep getting take it. So I hope that. I just think it's a terrible fight. I wonder how much Dave Allen is getting paid for this.
I understand. Well, yeah. I'll private message you.
Okay. You do it in the group chat there, we won't say it. But I wonder how much it is. I'd be surprised if it's £50,000. Well, the match you gave me, I can't. That is just disgraceful if that's true, what you said, Tom. But, so that's just shocking, to be honest with you. That wouldn't pay for his... I don't know. That shows you the bad side of professional boxing. It's a terrible fight. Seriously, boys, I have to listen to so much rubbish about how brilliant UK boxing is at the moment, and we're changing the game. Look at who Eddie Hearn got for Malik Scott for Ortiz when he signed him. He's basically now he's getting him in the ring with somebody who is. Where would we rate Dave Allen? I know he's not in the top 100 in the world.
Oh no, he's not. I mean,
he's top 200.
Biggest win is Cavern, isn't it?
Yeah,
Allen could have had some decent fights. Allen's the kind of guy. He's a youngster. He's a real young guy. He's deceptively young. He didn't have much amateur career. I think he could have carved the route to British title level.
Absolutely, yeah. If he'd been taken the right way and developed the right way, and Eddie Hearn's just using him as a punch bag for the A side, and it's pretty crap, if you ask me.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you say this is the kind of fight, Tom, that's going to play much more into Ortiz's hands than Scott?
Totally. Dave Allen has got some defensive skills, but it's not like he's got much movement. The shouldery roll type stuff, and he leans back, and so he does have some defensive skills to survive, but he doesn't have and it's movement that's going to give your man problems. And Ortiz is just going to blast him to every part of his body if he stands there doing shoulder rolls. It's just not. It's we know we slag Eddie Hearn off and all that and stuff, but this is really, to be honest with you, if people knew how much money he was getting, they'd be amazed how low it is. It's shoddy. This one, to me, ask me, it's just plain shoddy.
Yeah, I think, it's one of those where I interviewed Dave Allen earlier in the year, and his plan was to have 3 or 4 comeback fights, fight in small hall shows, build up against 8-rounders, get some rounds under his belt, get out of that sparring partner opponent mentality that he admitted he found himself into. And unfortunately, that hasn't happened. And I can understand why it hasn't happened. This is an opportunity for him. Ortiz didn't look good last time out. If Dave Allen were to miraculously pull the upset, we'd have to be talking about Dave Allen versus Anthony Joshua for a world title on pay-per-view. So I can understand why it's an opportunity. For me, it is just not the right way to build a young fighter, which is unfortunate. It's unfortunate for me. Paul, what about yourself, mate?
Yeah, I think it's a disgusting fight, to be honest. What? I mean, was it last week or the week before we were talking about this jokingly? Was it here? I can't remember. I was talking with someone anyway. I think it was you guys.
Yeah.
About this fight, but in jest, and then there was some sort of poll on Twitter where people said that they picked Dave Allen to beat Ortiz, and then the only thing I can think of is that it's given Dave Allen confidence, because if that figure is right, it's clearly not money. So it just makes you wonder why he would be taking this fight. It like you said, Tom, it's kind of like if that, you were saying his plans were to get a few rounds under his belt and whatnot, and he's only a young guy. He's kind of putting himself in the sort of Jason Gavin, sort of the TBAs, the guy that comes in to get knocked out in the first round by Shannon Briggs, like Emilio Zarate or whatever. He's putting himself in that sort of like company, isn't he, with this fight? He's not going to be able to do what Malik Scott did. Absolutely no chance. He's a completely different fighter. He hasn't got anywhere near the movement the other thing about Dave Allen, and I nothing against Dave Allen at all as a person or whatever, but I think his chin, people kind of go on about his chin and stuff, but I think it's kind of unproven, isn't it? I mean, his chin has held up against, sort of like British level fighters. We're now talking about a guy that has been fighting at a whole nother level. Tony Thompson, Bryant Jennings. This is for me, this is it's, you have to wonder what his camp, his team, his trainer and his manager are kind of doing. Why are they? I don't understand why he's being let into a fight like this. I think he's going to get an absolute beating. And Irish Tom there had a good point. It's these guys, and maybe his chin is fucking world class granite, but it is those guys that end up getting brain damage. Look at Nick Blackwell. Nick Blackwell took shot after shot after shot. So much so that Eubank Senior was telling Junior to go to the body, and that wasn't to protect the guy. It was because he knew he wasn't going to knock him out to the head. Kevin Kelly, not Kevin Kelly. Who's the guy? Nigel Benn.
McClelland.
Errol McClelland. He had a cracking chin. Michael Watson had a cracking chin. It's those guys that. And again, I don't want to be disrespectful at all, but it's kind of like I actually worry for the guy. Ortiz did look a bit slow in this fight, but you know what? In the Malik Scott fight, but everybody has off nights and stuff like that. And I remember watching that Dave Allen interview. He was saying he doesn't stay in shape and stuff, and he didn't have time to train for certain fights and whatnot. You have to wonder why he's taking this fight. To be honest, I just don't get it, and I think it's fucking really irresponsible matchmaking. I really do.
Like Mikey in the chat says, we can't blame Hearn that Allen pestered him for the fight. And it's probably easiest to make. He didn't force Allen to take it. I think that's just kind of bullshit. You got a guy here who's like way massively below him. You're paying him peanuts, and the guy's got depression and mental health issues. And to be honest with you, it's just an extremely exploitative mood, and it shows how much promoters in general, not to pick on Eddie Hearn in particular, how much promoters in general don't about fighters a lot of the time. Yeah.
I don't blame Eddie Hearn for making the fight. I don't. Dave Allen is a heavyweight who is in the limelight. He is well known to the British hardcore. And
what do you mean? He's not well known, Tom. He went in with Dillian White and he lost every round.
What I'm getting at, Tom, making a fight for Luis Ortiz at 2 or 3 weeks' notice. For the budget in question, David Allen is a very well-known fighter compared to who else is available.
How long did Eddie Hearn? How long has he signed him? It's not. This stuff about 2 or 3 week notice. That show was. Well, they knew there was a show coming up for ages.
Wait to see how he's done against Malik Scott though before making a decision.
Well, what do you mean? Do you think if he had lost it or something? You know what I mean?
No, but if he'd had 12 rounds where he'd been, exhausted and been in an actual fight, which obviously wasn't the case. Maybe they'd have stuck him in with an absolute. What I'm getting at is Dave Allen is a pro fighter who clearly wants to fight. He is probably, at this stage, one of the better options available, given the short notice. Now, I take your point. He could have made a fight of greater magnitude several weeks ago, and that is a point. But yeah, I can't say I've got huge grief with Eddie Hearn doing it. Although it is unsavoury. It is unsavoury that Allen's being rushed in before he's ready when he's admitted he's got health problems outside of the ring. It is unsavoury. But unfortunately, at times, this is an unsavoury sport, I guess.
Well, that's like saying you excuse it because it's normally people act unsavoury, so it's okay to be, I'm normally a dickhead, so what's wrong with me being a dickhead this time? You know what I mean? I just think it's...
Yeah, I hear you, and I know it's
not an ethical argument. It's like it's a realist argument.
He's going to be involved in heavyweight fights in the next couple of months, and as someone who likes Dave Allen, if he's going to be fed to the wolves, I'd rather him be fed to the wolves on a big show, and on a show where there's the opportunity for him to have some exposure and some press and PR over it, rather than just on the bottom of someone's undercard. Do you know what I mean?
But did he not get that PR and exposure fighting Dillian White? And how much has his pay gone up after that?
Well, it's gone down. But yeah, I mean, what David Allen is getting here, and this is the thing that none of us can put a price on, is when you're in a fight like this is heavyweight boxing. If Luis Ortiz comes out round one, throws a jab on Dave Allen's head and breaks his hand on Dave Allen's head, Dave Allen is going to end up in a world title fight. He's going to be on pay-per-view. He's going to have the opportunity to be a millionaire overnight. And I'm not saying for 1 second I'm picking David Allen to beat Luis Ortiz. But what I am saying is David Allen's got himself a lottery ticket here. This isn't just a match fee to lose against Luis Ortiz. It's also a potentially life-changing opportunity. And I don't want to, romanticize it too much, because 99 times out of 100, we know how the fight's going to go. But he's bought himself a lottery ticket here. And you've got to give him some credit for having the balls to do that.
Yeah, a lottery ticket. We were talking about whether this fight should be made. We're not talking about from Dave Allen's side. We're talking about from the other side. That's the problem. Like, if Dave Allen, we don't know what state of mind Dave Allen is in, but we do know that Eddie Hearn knows how much he's paying him and how little chance he has. Like, put it this way, for people who are watching the show, if AJ won't fight Ortiz, right? AJ won't fight him. And if he does fight him, he'd want to be paid. This is literally 1,000 times what Dave Allen is getting paid. Put it into context. And AJ has got fucking millions in the bank, and he's got no mental health problems. But anyway, like, it's a shit fight. I think people like Dave Allen's manager and trainer have got some sort of like they do, Paul. They have a responsibility.
They have a responsibility to him, especially if he's got mental health issues, and that these are the people that are close to him and stuff. They should be saying this is a fucking stupid move. I've got to say I disagree with gossip here. Saying he could break his hand and everything. Yeah, he could get hit by lightning as well. But let's be honest, the chances of David Allen coming out of this with anything other than an utter beating at best and at worst brain damage are far higher than any other outcome. And I just think it's really fucking irresponsible matchmaking. I think it's a terrible fight.
But what I'm saying, okay, so I know Dave Allen a little bit. I'm not going to pretend I'm one of Dave Allen's great mates, because I'm not, but I know him a little bit. But what I do know is Dave Allen is a guy who's passionate about carving a career in boxing, who, as recently as a year ago, was looking at giving up the sport completely, who was working part-time jobs, and who was, living a very, very unhealthy lifestyle, trying to get a bit of work left, right and centre. What he is doing now, even if he loses this fight to Ortiz, but goes the distance and nicks a few rounds, he's given himself an opportunity to carve out a career in something that he's passionate about doing, and that he, is really, really driven to achieve. And look, as I say, I'm disappointed from Dave Allen perspective, I would have liked to have seen him been built properly. I would have liked to have seen him have a real good opportunity at being the best he can be. But I can see from his perspective why he's made the decision.
But here, gossip. Like, if the BBBC reject Dave Allen, did they reject Dave Allen for a British title fight? How come they're going to sanction him against a fucking killer? How can they? That's the argument. Be sanctioned.
Argument for any journeyman, isn't it? You wouldn't have Jason Gaverne in a fight for the British title. Obviously, he's not British, but you take my point. Or you wouldn't have any journeyman. You see these journeymen fighting some of the biggest names out there, and unfortunately, that is actually what David Hearn. That's actually what David Allen is being viewed as now. It's an opponent. It's a journeyman, and I don't think it's a good argument to say he's not sanctioned for the British, because we see Luis Ortiz and fighters like him fight multiple opponents who wouldn't be sanctioned for the British. They're just journeymen.
Like who?
Yeah, but
like who? Like
journeyman, like literally 35, 40 years old. This is a 24-year-old kid who's had, 9, 10 fights? How many fights has he had?
No, but here, the thing is as well is that it's one thing being an up-and-coming star fighting a journeyman, but it's a different thing being an established world-level boxer fighting a journeyman. Like, Dave Allen is not a journeyman. He's actually, at the moment, he's probably English level. But, Luis Ortiz has not fought loads of journeymen, since he moved up his level.
Mm.
He's fought nobody since he dropped them. It'd be like AJ. Like, AJ might have got sanctioned to fight Matt Legg. Hiya, Matt, you're here in the chat there. I hope you're doing well. But he might have been sanctioned to fight Matt Legg in his fourth fight. But he wouldn't get sanctioned today. Because people know how good AJ is. And it's the same kind of thing. I just think it's a bit of a joke, to be honest with you. I think, I just don't think, I don't know. Well, we all know what we think. What does Sherry think?
I'm just having a look. Oh no, he's still there. Sherry.
I get what you're saying. It's a tricky one, but I don't know. Tom, as in BG. Obviously, you're saying, obviously you've interviewed Dave Allen a few times, and when you say you want to see him built up properly, what do you mean by that in terms of what sort of level did you think that in your mind that he can reach?
Well, to be honest, it's not purely that perspective. It's that when I interviewed him after the Dillian Whyte fight, he was very clear to me that what he wanted to do was have 2 or 3 8-rounders and then fight for an area title at this sort of time of the year. And I thought that was a sensible approach, and I thought that was a logical, well thought out plan. So I wanted to see him do that because that's what he told me he was going to do, and that seemed to be sensible. In terms of what sort of level he could reach, right now, I see him as area to English level. Could he win the British title? Yes, he could. If he had 2 or 3 good learning fights and didn't have to beat a Hughie Fury or didn't have to beat a Dillian Whyte, could he win the British title against a Gary Cornish? Could he win the British title against an Ian Lewison? Yeah, very possibly. Very, very possibly. So I see him as having that potential upside if handled correctly.
Fair enough, but pretty much, I think we're all pretty much in unison. Whatever the outcome of this fight, minus obviously him winning miraculously, he's pretty much in no man's land, isn't he?
Who? What? Sorry, say that again, sorry.
I mean, when he loses this fight, because I don't see him winning, land, isn't he, in terms of where he goes next?
Well, yeah, it depends, doesn't it? I mean, you could have said that after the Dillian Whyte fight, but it's got him this, which is arguably a bigger named opponent. So who knows? Maybe if he goes the distance with Ortiz and nicks a few rounds with Ortiz, maybe we'll see him being used far more regularly for this type of fight, and maybe he will start carving a decent income out of it.
I think it's most definitely a bigger name. Luis Ortiz is a much bigger name than Dillian Whyte, I'd say.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's pay-per-view as well.
Yeah, and it's on pay-per-view. But the thing is, I don't know if he even would people say he won any of the rounds against Dillian Whyte? I thought Dillian Whyte pretty much won every round in that fight.
Pretty much won every round, yeah.
And so Luis Ortiz is on a whole other level. I mean, the issue I've got with it is the levels. You've got world level, like you've got world champions avoiding Luis Ortiz like the fucking plague, and then they're putting Dave Allen in with him. I mean, I just think it's laughable.
I tell you what, lads, I don't hate to say it, but he'll look like Dave Allen when he goes into the start of his fight, and it'll be fucking Dave Alien by the end of this fight. And that's a sad thing to say.
Let's bring Jet in. Jet, do you have anything to add on this subject, mate?
No, I think the boys have probably covered it like extensively. I mean, Dave Allen, you know, it's going to be sad. I mean, we've seen some tragedies in the sport, and you know, his bravery could be his undoing in this fight. He come in and obviously he said, "I'm made of marble and I'm going to take Ortiz out," and that sort of stuff. You know, if he's going to come forward with that sort of style, he's going to play into Ortiz's hands, and you know, you don't want to see that, especially with, you know, some of the issues he's been having outside the ring. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's on December 10th, but it doesn't really appeal, I think, to many hardcore sort of boxing fans. And hopefully, you know, obviously Allen, he's not going to be paid that much and that sort of stuff, but hopefully he can come out of it, you know, okay, and maybe have a proper fight and try and build his career after, I guess. Because after this fight, he'll be coming out with a loss. Let's put it that way. I don't see him winning this fight whatsoever.
Fair enough. What about let's move it on because we've still got a lot to cover, Jet. Let's stick with judo. The Lucas Browne news, mate. Do you want to lead us off on that?
Yeah, I mean, he failed a drug test for VADA drug test. He's enrolled in the WBC clean boxing program or something like that. So they caught him off that, which was a bit weird because he's obviously not competing for a WBC title, like not even an international title or anything like that. So I was a bit confused, but obviously they've been doing their job, VADA and that sort of stuff. So it's good that the system is working. But at the moment, I mean, you know, you got to question now his first drug test. I know, obviously, we've previously said, I think, on the panel as well, that it was contaminated. But you really have to question it now. It's really quite dodgy, to be fair. If you're failing 2 drug tests within the year, it's not a good look for Lucas Browne. Obviously, what happens with the fight now with Shannon Briggs is, you know, something that's another topic. But you know, there've been some talk that David Haye might be next if he doesn't go down a WBO route for Shannon Briggs. So that fight might actually happen if it ever does. But yeah, I mean, it's weird stuff. I mean, you just got to look at it and take everything with a pinch of salt because, you know, a lot of people are getting popped now. So, and probably what Irish Tom, you know, me and him don't agree all the time, but when we do agree, we kind of agree, you know, wholeheartedly. Most of the boxers now are in drugs, and it is a bit of a shame to see this, you know, this damper on the sport.
Definitely. I think with that in mind, we do have to bring in our PED correspondent here, Irish Tom. Tom, any sympathy for Lucas Browne at this stage?
Not a bit of sympathy. He got caught for Austrian. Was that what he got caught for? That's the same. Yeah, it was Austrian. That's the same one that led to the revival of Brute's career and helped him to train longer, I think. So, like, let's look at his body shape. The difference between his body shape when he fought against Chagayev, it was completely different, and his engine was much, much better. He was able to box on the back foot and move for 10 rounds. So, like, I think, you know, to me, it's quite obvious he was on it for the last fight as well, and you know, he may have been doped by the guys in wherever the hell it was. Where was it again? Not Dagestan. Where the hell is it?
Russia.
Chechnya. Yeah, Chechnya in Russia. But you know, the reason why these guys are on VADA and they get caught taking these things is because obviously they think they're able to cheat the VADA test. You know, that they think, you know, there's a 95% chance they're not going to get caught with this drug. I'm going to have it clean out of my system. So, you know, he was doing it before, if you ask me, and he got caught this time. And all of that stuff we said about, you know, to be honest with you, I was never in the camp at all that believed that he hadn't done drugs for the last one, regardless of what he got caught for. So, you know, the statement that Hatton Promotions put out about it is very different than their previous statement. You know, the ones that they were doing about the clenbuterol. I think it was clenbuterol the last time. The ones that they're putting out with this one is very different types of statements, you know. So, and I don't know, it's been pretty quiet, I think, from Lucas Browne's side. So, just, you know, another drug fail in the, 20? How many is that? 40%?
40% of what, sorry, mate?
Of the top 20 games.
Oh, the top 20%.
20% of the top 20s that they've got done. You know, we went before.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be at least that, really, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Paul, do you have anything to add on Lucas Browne, mate?
Well, I mean, like I kind of was in the camp that kind of gave him the benefit of that. As some of you know, I kind of know Lucas a little bit. Well, I know him on Twitter, if that's knowing a person. I follow him, he follows me. But a bit of back and forth, and we were gonna chat to him at one point. We were gonna put it up on your channel, Tom, if you remember.
Yes.
And so the circumstances around the clenbuterol in the Calzaghe fight, I kind of did sort of give him the benefit of the doubt. I thought it was strange that he had passed the test just before leaving and failed one when he got there. I thought that was strange, but you know, when I'm wrong, I say I'm wrong. I mean, it does really look, to be honest, like I was wrong. You know.
Who's eating crisps on the panel?
Sorry?
Who's eating crisps on the panel?
I'm eating popcorn. Sorry, lads.
Hey, put yourself on mute.
You know what? I heard this the whole show since Irish Thomas joined. I just didn't want to say anything, so I put it in a chat now, and I see BG's face saying who's eating crisps.
Sorry, lads, because I usually have myself on mute when I'm eating my popcorn, but I forgot. But it's very, very nice popcorn. Anyway.
It makes it even better that it's popcorn, isn't it? Because when in sort of like forum land, when two people are or a few people are having a heated debate about something, there's a little popcorn sign, isn't there? Like people sitting eating their popcorn, so that makes it even more apt that it's porn you're eating. Disappointed. Kind of like I remember when we first started doing these podcasts, and Tom was talking about you know, they're all on drugs and whatnot, and I kind of like I don't know, I don't like to believe them sort of things. Do you know what I mean? I know some people are, but don't like to believe everyone is, and it's fucking hell, it's starting to look like everyone might be. Do you know what I mean? It's like fucking hell. You know, like boxing is so dear to me. I've been fucking watching boxing since I can remember. I can't remember a time when I wasn't watching boxing. Do you know what I mean? Even as a kid, and it's just sad for me to see it go downhill like that. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, just a bit saddened by it, if anything. Every time someone gets caught for fucking doping and stuff, it kind of pisses me off because the thing is, I'm ex-forces, as you guys know, and I know it is possible to get fit without the use of stuff. It's possible, you know. So just pisses me off, like, really.
Yeah, it does. It does, and you can see the differences. You know, some of it. I mean, Lucas Browne, I was never sold on him being completely innocent, and I said it a few times on the podcast. You know, he really, really appears to have an improved performance. You know, with that weight coming off, he appeared to move better, have better stamina, and all of that sort of stuff. So you got to cast some suspicion. But let's we better move on and talk about next week's boxing, because I've got to be off at 10:30 sharpest tonight, gents, and we've still got a lot to cover. So, Paul, let's stick with you to begin with, and I guess the major fight is Lomachenko Walters. What's your take on that matchup, mate?
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic fight. Really, really looking forward to it. I kind of like. I think Lomachenko is probably he is currently my favourite fighter to watch. He's just some of the things he does in the ring are just absolutely amazing. His movement is amazing. He seems to have, since he moved up in weight, he seems to have sort of like. He seems to carry a lot more power. He's sitting down on his punches a lot more now as well. I worry for him a little bit in this fight though, because this Walters is a killer, man. This Walters is a big lad at the weight, and he can really fucking punch, man. I think if Lomachenko can take Walters' power, Lomachenko wins. I think he is the superior boxer, although Walters is a decent boxer as well. You know, Walters is certainly good as well. He's not just a power puncher. But I think Lomachenko is definitely the better boxer. He's definitely the better mover. He's definitely got the better footwork. I think it really comes down to whether he can take Walters' power, because at some point Walters is going to get through. And I think it'll be a great fight. And to be honest, I'd be excited for Lomachenko fighting anybody. I think he's an absolute class act. He's got a great future ahead of him either way, whichever. And as well as that, I like the fact that he seems to be totally fearless. He seems to be just totally fucking fearless. He doesn't care. He will fight anybody. And you know, in this age of sort of like fighters sort of like cherry picking and stuff, I like that. You know, I like the fact that he is fighting a guy like Walters, because Walters is a lot more experienced as well. I know he's more experienced in the pro game. I know I had a lot really deep amateur career and whatnot, but Walters is much more experienced in the program, and I think he's considerably the bigger man as well. So really interested to see what everybody else thinks, who everyone else is picking. I'm going to pick Lomachenko to win, but I'm by no means certain of my pick. But really excited for the fight, and yeah, that's me.
Fair enough. No, appreciate that, Paul. I'm inclined to agree with you. I think Lomachenko stepping up in weight class against a guy like Walters is a risk, and I think if he keeps meddling in weight classes above, then it's going to continue to be a risk. But gone to my head, who am I picking? I'm picking Lomachenko on skills, and I think he's improving and looking better and better, as you say, Paul. So I'm gonna side with him. Jet, let's run over to you, mate. You're our lower weight classes correspondent. Give us your take on this matchup for the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, loads of people are going to say it's classic boxer versus puncher, and it's probably not, because there's a lot of other dimensions in the fight. I mean, Walters, as Paul said, he's a decent boxer when he wants to be. Against Nonito Donaire, he done pretty well. He took him out in 5 or 6 rounds, and he's a decent operator. I mean, at featherweight, he was really bullying the guys down at 126. If you look at Donaire, Mariaga, those sort of guys, he was kind of dominating them with his size and strength. But at super feather, I mean, the guys aren't huge, don't get me wrong. I mean, Pedraza's probably the biggest super feather out there in terms of height. But, the other guys, they're not that big. Lomachenko holds the WBO version. Corrales holds a WBA super, and then Souza holds a WBA regular, Pedraza IBF. So, and Francisco Vargas, but they're not necessarily big guys. I mean, obviously in Walters' kind of last fight against Souza, he didn't really knock Souza out or knock him down even. And obviously the rounds were competitive. I felt Walters won all the rounds, but they were competitive. I mean, if he is kind of competitive with Souza, who's, for me, not at the level, well, certainly not at the skill level of Lomachenko, I think he'd get embarrassed by Lomachenko, I'll be honest. Souza's quite an exciting fighter, but, in comparison to someone like Lomachenko, you get schooled by him. And there's always a risk, obviously, being a big puncher, Lomachenko's going against. But, you know, amateur career, stellar. Pro career, he nearly beat Orlando Toledo in his second fight. He's beaten, you know, some other decent operators. Roman Martinez, he wiped him out in 5 rounds with ease. I mean, you know, if you look at this fight, if you look at it, it's a tough fight to pick. But for me, it's pretty easy. Lomachenko is going to win this fight by decision, I think. You know, Walters will be in the fight. I think he'll be, for me, I think he's going to probably load up a lot on his punches, which wouldn't be the smart idea. I think if he does that, he plays into Lomachenko's hands even more. But, you know, I think Lomachenko is skilled enough, smart enough, and, you know, subtle enough to just box on the back foot. He can come forward as well. You know, in his last fight against Martinez, he came forward and he's done a really good number on him coming forward. And he has that sort of fake poor jab, and he pulls the opponent's sort of guard down, and then he'll get through. He's sitting down on his punches more, as Paul said as well. So, you know, anything's possible in this fight. But I think Lomachenko for me is, you know, is a favourite, is quite a heavy favourite, I'll be honest. And I think he's going to win by decision on this fight. That's my pick.
Fair enough. No, I'm with you. Sorry, who are you picking, mate?
I think this is a great fight in terms of obviously the two styles we've got in the ring. But I know Walters is a bigger puncher. He's a stronger guy. He's a massive guy who's been killing himself to make 126. But obviously, you know, the fight is happening at 130 now. Still, obviously, the naturally bigger guy. But I think Lomachenko is just special. There's something about this guy, you know, the things he does in the ring, the movement, the way he swivels around after throwing a combination. You know, you can throw punches in bunches, the angle, the speed. When you look at the whole package, he pretty much ticks every box. Obviously, apart from experience, amateur, you know, career was, you know, stellar as well. The only issue I see here is obviously Nicholas Walters' power, obviously, in terms of he's just so strong, and again, his size could be a factor in this. But I feel like Lomachenko has the tools to really outbox him really badly, and I think it will be a 12-round decision. Potentially, you know, Lomachenko has the chance of stopping him in terms of if he lands clean enough, you know, over a duration of time, you know, in accumulation. But I don't see that being the case. I think it's going to be a tough 12-round decision. But I think Lomachenko beats him all day, all night. I don't see Walters winning unless he stops him.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So we're unanimous so far. Tom, your take on it, mate?
Yeah, I think a lot of the advantages that Walters had was at 126, wasn't it? This is at 130.
Yeah,
it's at 130. Super featherweight title.
So those size advantages that were allowing him to blow people out, I think they're going to be largely gone. Not that it's a massive featherweight, but I don't think Walters is. I don't know if I'd class Walters as he's not like an aggressive, come forward guy like Salido. He's more of a kind of a tough counterpuncher. Am I being right there with his style?
Yeah.
Like, so I think that Lomachenko is likely to be able to outpoint him, and I don't see him stopping him. But I think Lomachenko is a little bit overrated by everybody. You know, when people are saying he's the number one guy in the world, I don't see it yet. He has to do it against. He has to beat somebody who is, say, the best guy in the division, and he hasn't done anything close. Well, I suppose he
could do
Gary.
Saturday.
He bet Gary Russell. He did, but he goes to Salido as well. You know,
yeah.
And I watched that Salido fight only 2 weeks ago again, and to be honest with you, he didn't look good in that fight to me.
No, but I mean, Salido was hitting him to the fucking balls every 5 minutes, every 5 seconds, man. I mean, Salido.
Yeah, but why didn't you hit him back to the balls, Paul?
No, he said in the interview, he goes, "I'm not that sort of fighter. I don't worry about it. I just fight and that sort of stuff." But anyway, it doesn't really matter because Salido came in 20 pounds overweight anyway. He came in at welterweight, and they're fighting at featherweight. So,
well, it was second.
If you look at the improvements he's made since then, you know, he'd beat Salido pretty handily in a rematch for me, pretty handily. But some people, obviously, as you said, he has to be the top in the division. Yeah, that's fair enough. Like, I understand that as well. Some people say Nicholas Walters is one of the best at super feather anyway, or featherweight, whatever you want to call it.
Well, he hasn't, But he has only fought once there, so it's hard to say that he's the best in the division. And the other thing is, as well, is Gary Russell Jr. has fought nobody. So Jr. beaten. So Gary Russell Jr., I think, if you put him in with Frampton, I think probably Frampton wins that fight, to be honest with you. But but who knows? It's a close fight, Jack.
Very close fight, very close.
Yeah, two good guys. Maybe you have one, I picked it, or whatever. But if Lomachenko bet Frampton in the morning, would you say to make him the best boxer in the world? I certainly wouldn't.
Who's the best in the world?
Yeah, no, whoever says he's the best in the world.
Ultratech has.
Oh, did he?
I don't agree with that.
No,
I like
Ultratech
as well, I don't agree with that at all, man. He hasn't beaten anyone he hasn't had an esteemed resume to even kind of think that. I'd even say, Nicholas Walters has Donaire on his record. That's maybe just as good as someone like a Gary Russell, if you look at Donaire's sort of achievements and that sort of stuff. So,
it's a lot better, but I think
it's more proven than Gary Russell, isn't he?
Yeah, it's all subjective.
Yeah, the other point is that Donaire was at a weight that was too big for him too.
Yeah, featherweight. Yeah.
So
a massive guy.
Yeah.
Fought a massive guy. So you're probably talking about a guy who might nearly be a weight class and a half apart in size.
He's probably a lightweight. If you look at him in seriousness, he's probably a lightweight. But
Who Walters?
Yeah, I think he's massive.
Got like 73-inch reach as well. He's got nearly 10 inches on Lomachenko.
Yeah, he's massive. He's huge. We'll see we'll see. I mean, I don't know. Irish Tom, you picking Lomachenko then on decision?
Yeah, I'm picking Lomachenko, but I'm not sold with the level of hype he gets yet. I think he has to deserve it. He hasn't done. Remember, when Manny Pacquiao came through and he fought Barrera and destroyed Barrera.
Yeah.
That was an elite performance, and no one was talking about him about pound for pound number one. Look at all the stuff that Manny Pacquiao had to do before he was mentioned like that. And to say that Lomachenko, I think we're in a bit of a dip now. I think a lot of these big name fighters that have been around are on the way out, and the new guys who are going to claim that number one haven't really done enough to get it yet. So I think we're in a dip, if you ask me, about who are these ultra elite guys at the moment. But it's pretty natural. Yeah, you get a good period and you get a bad period.
I mean, for me, Lomachenko, on eye test, he's elite. But as you say, Tommy, he hasn't. Resume wise, you just can't say that yet. To say he's the best in the world is just insane for me at this stage. Certainly, when people like Manny Pacquiao are still fighting, I mean, I don't see. I just don't. I don't see it. But I'm really looking forward to the fight because both guys are quite exciting fighters to watch. I think it's a great matchup, fantastic fight.
Yeah, so it's a good fight. It's a good fight, and it's weird. It's one of those competitive fights. I guess to an extent, it's like Crawford-Pistol, where it's a competitive fight, which everyone says is a competitive fight, but then again, the majority of people are picking one guy to win. And, whilst it could go either way, I think it's hard to not pick Lomachenko in this particular one. But, yeah, we'll move it on. There's some UK action to talk about this weekend. The Frank Warren show we'll start with. Disappointing news with regard to this show. So the Billy Joe Saunders world title defence has been postponed a week and will now be on the Scotland show that Frank's doing in a week's time. And also, due to what appears to be some sort of street assault, the Liam Williams-Patterson fight is off, and Liam Williams will now face for a fight for a minor belt against an opponent who I haven't come across before. So that's a disappointing update to the bill. I understand that Terry Flanagan's fight against Orlando Cruz is still going ahead. That's the fight that Flanagan will be a big favourite for. But this is not overly good news for Frank and Box Nation. They've just announced the new deal. There's a huge amount of question marks as to whether, with some of the luck they've had in the last year, they'll be able to have 30 bills and be able to carry them off. And then you see a bill like this being destroyed at last moment. So, Tom, what's your take on that, mate?
Sorry, yeah, like the curse of Frank keeps going, but you know, the two good, well, not too good, one good fight got off that bill. I was really looking forward to Liam Williams versus Ahmed Patterson. Patterson's fairly handy. It's going to be a good scrap. Still, there's a couple of decent things in that, but it is very disappointing. Frank must be wondering, is he fucking cursed? The fella, Patterson gets bricked walking down the street. What are the fucking chances? Like, he must be like going, it's bad enough he was trying to like leave the cancellation of the Billy Joe Saunders fight till the very last minute, and then fucking Patterson ends up getting bricked in the head. You couldn't make that shit up. But you know, hopefully the card still has some decentish scraps down the way. But what are we going to do? I was looking forward to that card as well.
There's a fantastic comment here, Tom. You'll like it. The comment is from Callum B. And I ignore 99% of Callum B's comments, but I think this one's quite good. He's put, Jet knows about Liam Williams' new Hungarian Binman opponent. Jet's been watching him since the beginning of his career.
I don't know anything about him, I'll be honest. I have no clue. All I know is
you're going to say, in a minute now, you're going to say, actually, I did know him. He fought once on an undercard in Slovakia that I was watching.
He beat Burns, so... I think everyone was unanimous in him beating Burns, so I'm correct in that one. I hold my hand for that one. So, yeah, I don't know anything about his opponent. All I know is for the WBO European title. That's all I know. So I just saw it on Twitter, so that was it. I was looking forward to the Patterson fight as well. I know he's moving up from welterweight, but he's not a bad fighter.
Yeah. I mean, that bill for me has limited interest now, I must say. On Frank Warren, you often get some decent fights on the undercard. You often get some interesting prospects coming through. But for me, losing Liam Williams, Patterson, is not good. He's not good. And also, obviously, Billy Joe Saunders, he's one of my favourite fighters. So to see that one postponed is not ideal. There's also some good fights potentially on the Eddie Hearn bill at Wembley, which is taking place this weekend. One of them in particular is Ahara Davis versus Scarpa, who we may remember from the John Wayne Hibbard matchup. Scarpa really impressed me that night, but I quite like Ahara Davies. I think he's a pretty good prospect. Paul, what's your take on that matchup, mate?
Yeah, all of it, or just the Ahara Davis?
The whole sort of weekend setup, mate. Whatever you want to get in on.
But I like Ahara Davis. I'm looking forward to seeing him fight. Looking forward to seeing Flanagan fight. But I mean, like, what is going on with Frank's cards? I mean, like, tell me if I'm wrong, Jet. But did you say something about one of the fights being off because somebody something to do with their passport or the visa or something?
I mean, Akavov, Billy Joe Saunders' thing. I don't know. I read somewhere. I don't know if it's correct or not. I think it was he had some medical sort of explanation or something like that, and it got caught in translation, and that's why he can't come over this week or something like that. So he can't fight this week because of a medical issue or something like that. I'm not sure. So it's obviously been pushed back till next week, December 3rd.
I mean, if Frank Warren, you just gotta sort of like wonder if you're sort of like cursed. You know, like the guy gets hit with a brick, gets mugged with a brick, and then fucking Rigando couldn't get over because of a fucking leaving his passport in the fucking hotel room or whatever it was, fucking up the visa or whatever. And then, I don't know, Billy Joe seems to sort of like postpone about 3 times a week. I mean, yeah, it's... I don't see how they're going to go from that to 30 shows a year. I really don't, unless there's a big shake up there. And I suppose you just got to hope that some of this money that will inevitably be pumped into his outfit from this TV deal will help in some way with that. because at this stage they just look like cowboys. Every time this happens, you're kind of like, is anybody surprised when a Frank Warren shows?
Not really. No, I'll be honest. You just feel it coming. Like 2 weeks away from the card, you go, "Oh yeah, brilliant fight, Liam Williams, Ahmet Patterson. You know, solid fight." Oh, next week, you know what? It's gonna be cancelled. Don't worry, guys. And then what happens? The guy gets bricked in the face. Not nice to say, but you know, it's unfortunate. Let's put it that way. And you know, his card is like not cancelled, or it's just, you know, rearranged. And you have Tommy Langford versus Sam Sheedy. Stalker versus Evans is actually on the card. The third fight. That's not a bad fight. I was actually watching the second fight, which I thought Evans won. So that's not a bad fight.
Yeah. So there's going to be that top pound for pound guy, TBA, is going to be on that card. I like TBA. He's good fighter. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Frank's seen better days, I think, to be honest. I hope I'm wrong, but I think he may have done. What's happening with Billy Joe then? Why is the Billy Joe fight off?
It was basically, I think someone put it in the chat. I don't know. I read it on Twitter that the medical documents or something were in Russian or something like that. So there was a mistranslation. There was basically a mistranslation with the documents. So they haven't been filed correctly, and now they're on the December 3rd card because of misinterpretation.
Oh right, that's that fight. Oh okay. Sorry, I didn't hear you say that was that fight. Okay, no worries. Yeah,
but, yeah. And Liam Williams is fighting for the WBO European title. Langford versus Sheedy for the British title. The Stalker versus Evans free is on the card as well. Then you have Nathaniel Wilson and those sort of guys on the card as well.
Isn't the Liam Williams fight the one where the opponent got hit with the Brit though?
No, he's pulled out. It's another guy now. He's fighting for the WBO European. So
right, yeah.
Instead of defending his British and Commonwealth titles, he's facing he's fighting for the minor trinket.
It's fucking hard to keep up, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll watch it anyway. It's boxing, but yeah, it's limited interest now that some of the bigger names are gone.
Yeah. Sherry, what about yourself, mate? What's your take on this weekend's boxing in terms of the UK scene? Either Flanagan Cruz or Davey Scarpa, any fights you're keeping an eye out for, mate?
Yeah, I mean, look, this whole Frank Warren thing, straight away, you know, he had a good bit of press last week with the BT Sport thing, and then, you know, obviously it's unfortunate with the Liam Williams fight that's a bit of a thing you can't really predict, and even to an extent with the Billy Joe Saunders thing, that's just terrible. It's similar to what happened with Rigondeaux, wasn't it, originally, when he's supposed to fight initially back in the UK, and his passport, something went wrong, didn't it? So it's not a good look for someone who's meant to be a top promoter and has been around for this long in the sport. I know it's probably not directly his fault, but you know, you need to keep an eye on all these things and ensure that, especially when you've just secured a massive deal, you don't make yourself look like an idiot, because at the end of the day, it will kind of fall back on you in a way. But in terms of the action that we have got, you know, it's still a decent card with a world title fight on there. Terry Flanagan, I enjoy watching him fight. You know, I feel his last few performances, he hasn't really put his best foot forward in them, and I think he's been kind of, if anything, he's probably overworked a bit. He's fought, I think, this is his third or fourth fight this year.
Terry Flanagan, I'm struggling to think. It must be third or fourth.
As Jet would say, he fought the fanny man. He fought before that as well against Derry Matthews in March, and I think he fought in December, didn't he? So against Diego Magdaleno or Jesse Magdaleno, one of the two.
Yeah, Diego.
That was it, Diego. Yes, we fought in December, then March because the Derry Matthews fight was postponed, then July, and now he's fighting again. So he's been pretty active for a champion, to be fair. So I respect him for that. But again, I think he'll beat Cruz. And then I think Stalker Evans 3, isn't it?
Yeah, Stalker Evans 3.
Their fight's been pretty good, but obviously, you know, it's one of those ones where it's tried and tested, I suppose, in terms of the type of fight you're going to get. But it'll be interesting to see if it's going to be a draw again or a win. Obviously, they've had 2 draws, haven't they? So
yeah.
just as a British boxing fan, it should be a decent watch. But it all depends again for me. If I'm from home, I'm always out. But it just depends if I'm home for it. But if not, I've got Boxing Nation. I'll record it and I can give it a watch from home. But either way, all boxing is good for us guys, man. Whatever we get, we'll eat it up. You know what I mean? So either way, I'm looking forward to it. But I think we can all agree we're looking forward to the late fight, aren't we? Lomachenko Walters, which is a massive bout.
Yeah, definitely. By the way, just a quick one. The Flanagan Diego Magdalena fight was in 2015, so this will be his third fight this year.
It
was in October, I think. 2000.
October or December?
No.
Yeah, no, that is something like October, I think, because he defended his belt against Magdalena after he won it from Zepeda, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it was December then. Because he won it against Zepeda in September, and then he came straight back and fought 2 months later. So it was December.
No, it was 10th to the 10th. I've just got it. 10th to the 10th, the Magdalena fight. The Zepeda fight was.
Was it the same card as when Liam Smith won his world title?
Oh God, he beat John Thompson. No, it was a. I can't remember. Yeah.
I think it was because I think Liam Smith was second to last, and then Terry Flanagan went like. As the final fight, that was it. Yeah, then it was October. Sorry, guys. Yeah, October. You're right. I don't know why they all feel so close together. Nah, fair enough.
Good stuff, guys. I'm gonna have to bring it to a close there because I need to rush off immediately after 10:30, which is extremely antisocial of me. I appreciate it. Is there anyone with a burning desire to say anything else in the next couple of minutes?
Irish Tom.
You're not going on a date with that beard, are you, Tom?
I wish I was, mate. I wish I was. I better invest in a razor, hadn't I? Yeah.
Don't worry, we'll send you one our way.
Payday on Friday, so it may have to wait till then. But there you go. But yeah, no, guys, appreciate you all taking the time tonight, as per usual. Should be some good fights on the weekend. You never know. I think Scarpa Davies could develop into quite an interesting fight. You always get some decent matchups on the front, Warren Bill as well. So we'll see how that one develops. And obviously Lomachenko Walters got the potential to be a real good fight. But yeah, guys, really appreciate everyone's time. Appreciate everyone in the chat who's joined us this evening. We've had over 120 people watching at times, so that's fantastic. If you've enjoyed the show, please hit the thumbs up button. Please subscribe to the channel. You can also check out Jet's channel, which is Boxing Discussions. You can probably see him in the chat right now. So yeah, appreciate it, guys, and hope everyone has a good evening.
All right, lads.
Take care, guys.
Cheers, guys.